I would like to enter into evidence another super crazy crack theory that me and Eka from my group chat came up with. And so you guys saw my theory reel about how Cormac could have been Mor's brother, but now I'm going to talk about how Cormac might be Mor's son. And I'm going to put some pictures below. Cormac means raven, or raven's offspring. We know that in Irish lore, the Morrigan, one of her symbols is the raven. And we see the raven on the cover of Akamath. And Mor would have been the original High Lady of the Night Court because she's of the original bloodline, if it hadn't swapped. And Rhys and Feyre, as High Lord and High Lady, wear crowns of raven's feathers to Huon City. Now, we know from Rigelus that Cormac is an undiluted bloodline from Dusk. I've mentioned this a million times. But you know whose name means Dusk? Keir, Morrigan's father. You know, the steward of Huon City, where they wear the raven's feathers. As we know, dusk is the period of time between day and night, light and shadow. And you know what else symbolizes between light and shadow? A raven. And funny enough, what are Cormac's powers? Shadow wielding and fire wielding. We know that Rune was known as Agent Night because he wielded shadows, and Lydia was Agent Day because she wielded fire, which would make Cormac Dusk. And you know who Cormac looks exactly like? Morrigan. Blonde hair, light brown eyes. Cormac was also the first benign High King of Ireland. Now I know what you're thinking. If Mor's his mother, and Cormac is 77 years old, and he somehow got to Midgard, world walked there, then who's his father? Eris Van Sarah. Because I've been saying that him and Mor were rejected mates. We know that Mor sleeps with males for pleasure. I think, somewhere along the line, they got it out of their system, right? Because I don't think they hate each other as much as they pretend to. I think there's a whole thing there. But I think that she got pregnant. I think that Eris world walked his son to Midgard. Because, hello, Baron, right? And if Baron knew that they had a child, he would force them to get married. Just like he tried to ages ago, right? Cormac has fire, as well as shadows. Mor has dark roiling magic, so she has some sort of shadow magic, right? Now, where do you get that Eris is a world walker? Well, he knew all of the secrets about the Sister Peaks, which means he has to know about the portals, and he has to know about the First Light Cores. And during the Hybern War, what does it say when he enters? Do you remember? Out of a rip in the world, Eris appeared atop our knoll. Winnowing is not described as a rip in the world. It's never been described as a rip in the world. I found that phrasing very odd. And then I read Hofast, and I was like, huh, that's why Eris is so suspicious. But I also want to make mention that Cormac, when he incinerated Pippa, it was almost the same as when Lydia incinerated Pollux, and when Aelin incinerated all of the Ilkin. We know by now that Lydia is a part of Aelin and Brannon's line. So my thoughts are that we know that Aelin had a bunch of kids with Rowan, right? I think that Lydia was one of her lines. I think that Lady Autumn was one of her lines. And I think that they have the special fire magic that Aelin had. And I think that's why, and I'm going to bring this full circle, don't worry. I think that's why Baron needed Lady Autumn, as I've said before, to rule, because she was the strong one. Powerful fire-wielding noble is what Lady Autumn is said to be, from a house of. So, if Eris has that from Aelin's line, and he passed that to Cormac, Cormac would have that, and he would have the dark shadow magic of Mor and Rhys's line, of the Night Court, the Dusk Court, combined. And you have to remember, the redheads are connected to the Midgard crossing. That would be Lady Autumn's line. Lady Autumn is the redhead, not Baron, which means she would know the secrets, which means she would pass down the secrets to Eris. Now, we know that the first king blessed with true fire magic was Brannon, right? That's been the big thing. Mala was a god. She gifted her mate, Brannon, her true fire magic, her godly fire magic, which is very strong. And, of course, Brannon gifted it to Aelin, and then I'm assuming Aelin gifted it to Lydia and Eris, Cormac, whatever. We know that Lydia named one of her sons Brannon after Brannon, and his nickname is Bran. Does anybody want to take a guess as to what Bran is the Celtic god of? Because, remember, Cormac's name is Celtic, it means ravens, right? Bran is the Celtic god of ravens. There's also a three-eyed raven in mythology that symbolizes being all-seeing or the mind, which is literally truth powers, which is what Mor has. The ability to recognize the truth within anybody she looks at. So I think if Cormac also had some truth magic, he would be able to plan better. And I think he absolutely faked his death. Let's be honest. I think he wanted to get back to Prythian. We know, and I'm going to repeat this again, we know that he spent his whole childhood and everything in the archives. He thought that he was going to be the one chosen for the Star Sword. He wanted the Star Sword, I think, to get back to Prythian. We also know that the surname Donnall means world mighty, world ruler, world traveler. Come on, guys. Cormac is not dead. He's going to be the High King, or at least King of Dusk. And Morven also has shadows, right? So Morven, I don't think is actually his father. I think he's Kyr's brother. Kyr fought Hybern soldiers with shadow magic, and we know that Mor has hidden shadow magic. We also know that Morven's shadows flock like ravens, aka the dusk court symbol. We know Kyr's name means dusk. Morven's name means big peak and lives by the sea. What has a big peak and is surrounded by the sea? The dusk court, the prison island. Morven was the king of Avalon. Avalon was a chunk of the dusk court tethered to Prythian by the mists. I think that Mor and Eris world walked with their child and bestowed upon Morven an heir, since he didn't have, like, a lover or anything, so he didn't have any heirs. Again, I think Beren and Kyr would have forced Eris and Mor to get married if they knew that they had a kid. So they did what was best for them and gave him to Morven. But what really drives this point home is that not once is Cormac's mother mentioned. Cormac never mentions having a mother or knowing his mother, so we can kind of assume that he didn't have one or she wasn't in the picture, right? Which makes sense if his mother is Mor. However, he did say that him and Morven were related to Lauren and Rune because they're cousins, which makes sense because Mor's line are cousins to Rhysand's line. I also want to point out that Nesta made a Kingmaker sword that Amren tried to get Rhys to use to become High King, and he said no, and she said, well, the sword's going to choose another, and the sword's been around the entire inner circle and hasn't chosen anybody. So it's going to be Cormac. He's coming. And I want to say one more time that Mor and Eris have deep, deep-seated secrets that Mor does not want anyone to know. Eris literally says she knows the truth but has not revealed it. Don't believe the lies she tells you about me. Like, and Mor also has that hidden house in Valahan that not even the inner circle know about. So is this where she meets up with Eris to discuss things?